Rain fell like a curtain over Ouagadougou. The sky looked heavy, almost tired, as if it had cried for hours and had many hours still to go. Water streamed down the cracked walls of the old school, turning the dust into mud and filling the street. With a soft, steady echo, cars passed slowly. Students hurried through the gate with jackets over their heads, backpacks pressed to their chests, shoes splashing through puddles as they tried to avoid the cold drops that chased them. Beside the school entrance, on the sidewalk where the concrete was broken and uneven, sat a small boy. His name was Amadou. His legs pulled tightly to his chest, his chin resting on his knees. His shirt clung to his thin shoulders, soaked through. He wore no shoes. His bare feet pressed against the rough ground, already turning pink from the cold. His eyes stared at the puddles forming around him, but his mind was somewhere else. The rain mixed with the tears he tried so hard to hide. Every time another child passed, he looked down quickly. Some stared at him. Some whispered. One girl slowed, holding her backpack straps tight, wanting to say something kind, but fear made her continue through the gate. Amadou didn't blame them. It hurt too much to even hope that someone might stop. Tucked beneath his arms was a tiny notebook, its edges soggy, pages wrinkled like old leaves. It was the only thing he cared about in the world. He had picked it up from a trash can weeks ago. The pages inside were mostly blank, except for some drawings of stars and mountains he made with a pencil that had no eraser. That book was his dream, his chance to learn, his hope that one day he would sit inside the classroom instead of outside the gate. A black SUV approached. Its tires sent water splashing like wings rising from the street. Security guards stepped out quickly with umbrellas, scanning the area. A tall man followed them. His jacket was dark, his posture strong, his steps steady despite the rain. President Ibrahim Traoré had just finished a nearby meeting and planned to leave quickly. His team insisted the weather was too harsh. He should be rushed inside. "Mr. President, the car is ready," one guard said. Yet something made him stop. His eyes had caught the image of that lonely child sitting in the rain. Traoré's gaze softened. The guards exchanged confused looks when he stepped away from them toward the school. He walked slowly, his boots splashing through puddles, his breath visible in the chilly air. He stopped in front of the boy and bent down so they could meet eye to eye. "What is your name?" His voice calm and warm. The boy stayed silent. His fingers gripped the notebook tighter. He seemed afraid that speaking might make everything worse. Traoré smiled gently. "I am Ibrahim. May I sit with you?" Amadou looked up. Recognition flickered in his eyes. The president of Burkina Faso was talking to him. To him. He couldn't understand why. Traoré lowered himself to the wet sidewalk and sat beside the boy, not caring about the rain soaking through his clothes. The security guards watched from a distance, restless but silent. People around the street stopped and stared. Some filmed. They had never seen a leader sit in the mud during a storm. The president noticed the notebook. "Do you like to write?" He asked. The boy swallowed hard. His lips trembled. "I want to learn," he whispered, barely audible over the rain. "Why? Are you not inside the school?" Amadou stared at the gate, where children in dry uniforms disappeared into the warm classrooms. His breath shook, because they told me poor children cannot study. Those 7 words hit Traoré's heart like a lightning strike. Poor children cannot study. He looked at the child more closely. The thin arms, the wet clothes, the hopeless stare. How many children like him sat outside gates around the world? How many dreams were drowned by rain and poverty? "Who told you that?" Traoré asked. "People," the boy murmured. "The ones who laugh when I try to enter. They say school is not for me. They say I don't belong." He wiped his cheek with the back of his hand. Maybe they are right. Traoré leaned closer, his voice firm but filled with kindness. Listen to me, Amadou. You belong anywhere your dreams take you. He placed a hand over the notebook. No child should be denied education. Not here. Not anywhere. Amadou's eyes lifted with a spark of confusion. But I am nobody. Traoré shook his head slowly. You are somebody. A future leader. A future teacher. A future doctor. Whatever you want to be. His voice carried the strength of mountains. Your story does not end at this gate. The rain kept falling, but something warm rose in the child's chest. A tiny flame. Hope.Traoré acute stood and extended a hand. Come with me. Amadou hesitated. Dirty feet. Ripped shirt. The idea of stepping beside someone like the president felt impossible. Yet the hand was steady and waiting. So he reached up and took it. They walked together to the gate. The guards followed behind, shocked by what was happening. A few teachers rushed out when they saw the president, nervous and confused. This boy will be registered here, Traoré said, his voice calm but commanding. He will receive a uniform, books, shoes, and anything else he needs. His eyes narrowed just slightly. Do I make myself clear? The teachers nodded quickly, hands over their hearts, overwhelmed by guilt and gratitude. A teacher crouched to help the boy inside. Before Amadou stepped through the gate, he turned to look back at President Traoré. Why are you doing this? He asked, voice trembling. Traoré answered with a soft smile. Because leaders must stop to listen. That is where change begins. He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. One day, when you are a great man, you will do the same for another child. The president walked back into the rain, not waiting for applause or praise. His jacket was soaked, his hair dripping, his boots muddy. It didn't matter. What mattered was the little hand that had held his. The little dream that had been lifted from the sidewalk and carried into a classroom. Inside the school, Amadou was handed dry clothes. He looked at his notebook, then at the chalkboard ahead of him. His heart pounded with excitement and fear. He whispered to himself, I can learn. I can become someone. Outside, the storm continued, but it no longer felt cold. The rain had washed away despair and left behind something new. A promise. Across the city, across the country, the image spread. A leader in the mud, a child rising from the street. A powerful reminder that compassion is the strongest form of leadership. Amadou took his first step into a future that had once been locked behind iron gates. Dreams grow when someone believes in them. The sky still carried the weight of the rain from earlier, its clouds heavy and dark like a warning. The school courtyard was quieter now. Students were in their classrooms, their voices muffled behind walls. The puddles reflected the world upside down, like a truth waiting to be flipped the right way. Inside the school's small waiting area, President Ibrahim Traoré sat beside Amadou. The boy's hands twisted nervously around his notebook. Even indoors, the cold still clung to him, and his silent fear seemed to fill the room. Traoré watched the child for a moment, sensing that what he had seen outside was only the surface of a much deeper wound. Tell me everything. Amadou, Traoré said softly. The boy's eyes grew cloudy. He hesitated, swallowing the memories. That tasted bitter. His voice cracked as he spoke. My parents, they died months ago. Both of them got sick. His hands tightened. They worked hard. They always told me school is the place where futures are born. He forced a small smile, broken at the edges. They saved money for me. They promised I would learn. What happened to the money? Traoré asked gently. Amadou's shoulders dropped. My uncle. He took it. A sharp silence followed. The boy continued. He said I should forget books. He said school is only for rich families. When I cried, he beat me. One night, he threw me into the streets. His voice trembled. He said I am another beggar now. Anger flickered behind. Traore's calm eyes. He clenched his jaw, not at the child, but at the world that had failed him. And the school? Traore asked. They told me I must leave the gate. They said I disturbed the reputation of the school. His lips shook with hurt. I tried to show them I want to learn. I begged them. They pushed me away. Traore's heart felt heavy, like the clouds above. Each detail fell like thunder inside his mind. He stood up suddenly. Come with me, he said, his voice firm. Not angry, but full of purpose. Amadou followed him through the hall. The school floors echoed under their steps. Posters about education and success decorated the walls. Yet right here, at this very place, a child had been denied the simplest chance to dream. Traore pushed open the door to the headmaster's office without knocking. The headmaster looked up from his polished desk, annoyed. His suit was neat, his glasses perfectly aligned. He frowned when he saw Amadou. Not this boy again, he muttered. He causes trouble. Always sitting outside. Always crying. Traore's eyebrows raised slightly. Is that so? The headmaster didn't bother. Looking closely at his visitor, he waved a hand dismissively. He is a street child, nothing more. We cannot take everyone who begs at the gate. It would damage our standards. Amadou lowered his gaze, insult slicing deep into his heart. And what about the money his parents saved? Traore asked. Did you try to help him find support? Reach out to social services? Contact family? The headmaster laughed quietly. Please, we have enough responsibilities. We do not interfere in personal stories. Traore took a step forward. You refused a child education. You left him under the rain. You let his tears fall at the entrance of your school. The headmaster leaned back, finally looking irritated. Who are you to question how I run this school? His tone dripped with arrogance. If you are a relative of this boy, take him away. We do not need interruptions. The room grew tense. Traore slowly removed his cap. He set it on the table. The headmaster's eyes widened. Then, the president slipped off his jacket, revealing the military uniform underneath. Shock froze the air. Every person in the office gasped. Voices inside the hallway erupted. It is President Traoré. Papers fell from someone's hands. The headmaster's face drained of color, as if the life inside him escaped through his shoes. He stuttered. Mr. President. I did not know. Traoré raised a hand. Enough. The headmaster's excuses turned into frightened silence. The president looked around the office, scanning the walls filled with awards and certificates. Education is not a privilege of the wealthy. It is a birthright of every child in Burkina Faso. He pointed toward the gate outside. That boy sat there day after day. Rain soaked him, hunger chased him, but he never stopped dreaming. That is the kind of student any school should be proud to have. The teachers gathered near the door, ashamed, unable to lift their heads. Traore turned to a nearby officer. Gather the teachers and staff. I want every document reviewed, every child denied admission, every irregular fee, every hidden deal. We will uncover the truth behind this school's corruption. The officers saluted and hurried away. The walls seemed to shake under the weight of justice entering the room. The headmaster fell to his knees, voice trembling. Mr. President, please, forgiveness. Traore looked down at him. You refused a child what God himself commands us to give, dignity and hope. His voice was firm like a strong river. There will be consequences. Amadou stood behind him, eyes huge with disbelief. The world that once pushed him aside was now standing up for him. The president placed a steady hand on the boy's shoulder. You will study here, he said, not because of charity, because you deserve it. Amadou tried to speak, but words dissolved into tears. He hugged his notebook, clutching it like a promise. Traore crouched so they were eye level. Your parents gave you love. Your uncle gave you pain. This school gave you rejection. Now, let your country give you a future. For the first time in months, Amadou felt seen. Not as a burden, not as a stray. As a child with a future. Outside, the rain finally stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds like a new chapter beginning. Traoré led the boy out of the office. As teachers stepped aside, in shame, students peeked from classrooms, surprised to see a leader holding a child's hand, guiding him toward his rightful place. Justice had entered the gate that once refused hope. Power means nothing if the weak are ignored. Leadership means nothing if the helpless are unseen. The sun finally pushed through the clouds, spreading a gentle warmth across the schoolyard. The world looked brighter, as if God himself had decided that this moment deserved light. Puddles still shimmered on the ground, but the storm no longer felt like a threat. Instead, it felt like a memory of the pain that was now ending. President Ibrahim Traoré walked slowly beside Amadou, holding the boy's small hand with care. Students watched from windows and open doors, their eyes wide, trying to understand how a child once ignored by everyone was now walking side by side with the leader of the nation. Every step they took felt like history rewriting itself. The gate that once pushed Amadou away now stood open in front of him. It looked the same, but it no longer held power over his destiny. Traoré paused with the boy at the entrance. "Do you remember what you told me?" the president asked softly. Amadou nodded, voice small. "That poor children cannot study." Traoré smiled gently. "Those words will never be spoken again in this country." He lifted Amadou's hand, and together they stepped through the gate. This time, Amadou did not look down in shame. He walked with his head held high, guided by courage he never knew. He had teachers stood lined up, hearts heavy with guilt and regret. Not one dared to speak. The silence was loud, and in it lived a powerful message. The world had changed, and now the school must change with it. Suddenly, trucks rolled into the school grounds. Soldiers in clean uniforms stepped out, carrying boxes marked with the national seal. They opened them in front of everyone. Inside were brand new school supplies, backpacks, books, notebooks, pencils, shoes, and fresh uniforms of every size. Gasps spread among the students. Little faces lit up like lanterns. One soldier approached Traoré and saluted. "Sir, everything is ready." The president turned to the crowd. His voice rose with energy and truth. "Every orphan in Burkina Faso will receive free education. No child will sit outside a gate again. No future will be denied." Teachers exchanged shocked glances. Some tears glimmered quietly on their cheeks. The injustice they had allowed now stood exposed under the sun. Traoré looked down at Amadou. "This is where your life begins," he said. A school administrator stepped forward with a small envelope. "Mr. President, we made something for him." Traoré accepted it. Inside was a new student ID card, clean, laminated, shining like a medal of honor. The president read the name printed in bold letters. Amadou Suleiman, student, Class 1. The boy stared at it, lips parting in wonder. He had never seen his full name written with respect. He held the card with both hands as if it were made of gold. "It is real?" Amadou whispered. Double quotes. "Yes," Traoré replied. "This is your place, your school, your future." Tears filled the boy's eyes, but they were not the same tears that once fell on the cold pavement outside the gate. These tears sparkled with hope, with the belief that tomorrow might be kind. Traoré lifted the boy up into his arms and carried him toward the center of the courtyard. Students gathered in a circle, their young faces eager, curious, and full of new admiration. He spoke with pride, letting his voice reach every heart. "Look at him. This child, your brother, your friend. He was left in the rain while you sat in warm classrooms. He was hungry while you opened your lunch boxes. He was alone while we all walked past him. Students looked at the ground, realizing the truth of his words. I want you to learn something today. A nation does not rise because of money. A nation rises because its children rise. His voice strengthened. This boy is not alone anymore. None of you are alone. This nation is your family. The courtyard erupted in applause. Children cheered. Some ran to hug Amadou. Others touched his shoulders or smiled shyly, wanting him to feel welcome. He wiped his tears, laughing through his joy, unable to contain the happiness bursting inside him. Traore placed Amadou gently back down. Tell them what you want to be one day, he encouraged. Amadou looked around. The world that once rejected him. He breathed deeply. I want to become a teacher, he said, voice firm. I want to help children like me learn. Students clapped again, louder this time. A few shouted his name with excitement. Traore knelt beside him and spoke quietly. Then one day, you will stand where your teachers stand now. You will guide others through the gates of knowledge. The boy nodded, gripping his notebook against his heart, like a treasure finally recognized. At that moment, the school bell rang. Instead of an ordinary sound, it felt like a call to a new era. A reminder that a revolution sometimes begins with a single child walking through a door. Traore turned back to address the crowd. We will start a national support program. All vulnerable children will be identified, protected, and given everything they need to learn. No more excuses. No more obstacles. Soldiers handed out supplies to children, who overflowed with excitement. It was like the first day of school for everyone. The headmaster approached slowly, deeply shaken. Mr. President, I promise things will change, he whispered, voice thick with remorse. Traore simply nodded. Do not promise me. Promise them. He pointed toward the children gathering around Amadou. They are the future. As Traore walked toward the exit, Amadou rushed after him and hugged him tightly. Thank you, the boy said softly, for believing in me. Traore held him close for a moment, knowing that love is the greatest law any leader can follow. Make your parents proud, he replied. Make your country proud. I will, Amadou said, tears glistening like diamonds. Traore stepped away and saluted the boy. Amadou quickly copied, saluting back with the clumsy determination of a young soldier of hope. Laughter rippled through the crowd, filled with warmth. The president left his school as the sun brightened the sky. Behind him stood a child reborn, a school awakened, and a nation reminded that greatness grows from compassion. In the distance, church bells sounded. It felt like God answering. The promise made here today. A country that lifts its forgotten children will never fall. The rain that once soaked Amadou outside the school gate had disappeared. In its place, bright sunlight poured across the nation, warming dusty playgrounds and fresh notebooks. The sound of children laughing echoed through villages that had long forgotten joy. Something new was rising in Burkina Faso, something powerful. It began with a promise made by President Ibrahim Traoré, a promise spoken from the heart, in front of a small boy who once believed the world did not care if he lived or disappeared. Weeks had passed since that unforgettable day. The gates that once rejected Amadou now opened for thousands like him, children who used to roam streets barefoot. Children who wiped tears instead of reading books. Children who learned to survive before they learned to write their names. They now walked through those same iron gates with heads lifted high. Every orphan, every forgotten child, every heart that had known hunger more than love. News cameras rushed to capture history. They found Amadou sitting proudly in a front row desk, his uniform crisp, his shoes shining like treasure. He raised his hand confidently whenever the teacher spoke. Even when he was nervous, he tried. The president had told him to try. So he did. Children who once ignored him now shared pencils with him. The boys who mocked his dirty clothes now asked him to sit beside them. Even the teachers treated him with a gentle smile, as if they were making up for years of silence. At lunchtime, he looked at his new ID card again. He traced each letter of his name with his thumb. Amadou. A child with a name. A child who mattered. The camera zoomed in as he hugged that card tightly against his chest. One reporter asked, "How does school feel now?" Amadou looked up with eyes full of light. "It feels like home." The country felt every bit of that answer. Across villages, families turned up the volume on their radios just to hear more. Mothers wiped tears. Fathers held their children closer. Everyone saw what leadership looked like when it chose love over power. President Traoré often visited schools quietly. He didn't want ceremonies or special chairs. He entered classrooms and sat beside students like a father checking on his children. Whenever a desk was broken or a child sat without books, he noticed. One afternoon, he arrived at Amadou's school again. This time, the headmaster and teachers waited anxiously by the entrance. They carried guilt like a heavy chain on their shoulders. Amadou saw them whispering nervously as Traoré walked in. The headmaster stepped forward, his hands shaking. "Mr. President," he whispered, his voice struggling to rise. "We wronged this child. We forgot what our duty is. We forgot what education truly means." He took a deep breath and looked at Amadou, tears gathering in his eyes. "We are sorry." The teachers behind him lowered their heads. Not a single excuse. Only humility. The courtyard filled with students watching silently. Something historic was happening. Not a speech. Not a law. A change in the heart. Traoré placed a firm hand on the headmaster's shoulder. "What matters," he said, "is what you choose from today forward. A nation does not rise by avoiding mistakes. It rises by correcting them." Amadou looked between them, confused at first. Then he understood. Forgiveness is another kind of education. The headmaster knelt down so he was face to face with the young boy. "I promise," he said, voice breaking, "we will protect every child who walks through this gate, including you." Amadou. For the first time, Amadou saw fear replaced by respect in the eyes of adults. Students clapped. Teachers clapped. Even the guards near the entrance clapped, because they remembered the day they once pushed him away. Traoré lifted Amadou and placed him gently on the platform used for morning assembly. "Look at him," the president called out to the entire school. "This boy once sat alone in the rain. Now he stands in front of his nation. Because every child deserves a chance to rise." Children shouted proudly, "Yes, we will rise. We are the future." Amadou covered his face as more tears came, but not the kind that fall from sadness. These were tears that shine when hope becomes real. Traoré wiped one tear with his thumb. "Lift your head, my son," he said. "This country is yours too." The school band played the national anthem. Flags waved high. The wind felt different, lighter, full of promise. Amadou pressed his hand to his heart and sang louder than he ever thought he could. Television stations broadcasted the moment into every home. Millions watched a young orphan become the symbol of a new beginning. No longer a street child, no longer forgotten. A star rising. At dusk, when students packed their bags, Amadou stayed behind for a moment, staring at the classroom blackboard. He touched the chalk dust and smiled. This was where his new life started. Outside the gate, he saw other children racing to their parents with excitement. Some pointed at him, whispering, "That's the boy from the news." He blushed but smiled. Proudly, not from fame, from belonging. President Traoré walked beside him as they headed toward the exit. "How do you feel, Amadou?" He held his books tightly. "I feel like I can become someone." Traore nodded slowly. You already are someone. The sun lowered behind the school, painting the sky gold and red. It looked like the flag of Burkina Faso stretching across the heavens. A new day had arrived for thousands of little hearts like Amadou's. They didn't have everything yet. They still had challenges. Poverty had not magically disappeared. Life would still test them. Reality would still be hard. Yet something powerful had changed. Their dreams were now allowed to breathe. That night, as city lights flickered and villages rested, the whole nation felt one truth. True leadership does not build walls around power. True leadership builds bridges toward the people. A country becomes stronger when its smallest warriors rise. A nation becomes great when its children are lifted from the ground to the sky. Amadou closed his eyes with a smile, knowing tomorrow would come with hope instead of fear. This chapter was not an ending. It was the first page of a brighter story. For him. For every child. For Burkina Faso.